So that sounds like a good program that's new. We also touched upon cell phones, vape detectors, and then the hallway so there's a lot of good things happening. We also discussed how we're going to be monitoring the current implementation of the grading and reporting pilot program. So initial thoughts are that we're going to try to come up with some survey questions to see how teachers like it, if there's any red flags, although this really isn't working, so we can make changes sooner than later if need be. So we wanted to just positive impact on the students and teachers. Then we had a lengthy conversation around the academic practice of dropping the lowest grade, and we'll be continuing that discussion. Our next board meeting is scheduled for 9/10, but I did have a few members say that date might not work, so maybe we could. Yes, Tom.
Thank you. Next, the finance, but before Janice reports on finance, I just want to let the board know that I appointed Morgan to the finance committee tonight, so she'll now be a member of the finance committee. I won't get into the reasons, but anyway. Now you can go ahead, Janice.
Oh, it's intriguing.
So the finance committee met prior to this meeting, and on the agenda tonight there are three motions that are on the agenda for quarterly financial statements for the board to basically be presented with. We're recommending, the subcommittee is recommending to the full board to receive that particular statements for the last quarter ending June 30th, 2024. In addition, we talked about year-end transfers that were being recommended by Amanda as well, sets to be to approve by the board tonight, and also capital projects funds adjustments as well. These are projects that Dennis works on, where he has some balances left in projects that he completed, and then there's some new projects that he's trying to moving funds into different areas so that he can access those dollars to basically continue with those projects as well. Basically, this in terms of the year-end transfers, and what we look at is we're looking at this time of year the member town contributions. Again, this is also in your board packets. The BOAG grant income that we brought in, regular education tuition, including ag ed education tuition and special ed tuition, and our interest income in terms of how well we've done with that. And then the expenditures for the end of the year also. So I think we ended up with, after doing all of those changes, we've ended up with a balance of like about 90,000. So those are on the agenda tonight. If there's any questions, okay. And we have a special ed, our balance in special ed reserve fund is $609,584 still, so we're good standing there as well.
Thank you. Tilden?
Building had a meeting scheduled before this. We did not have a quorum, so did not meet.
We didn't have more. Curriculum?
Curriculum did not meet.
Curriculum. EDJ, that would be Tony. Yeah. Okay. And then we have student reports from Sophie and Mary. Who wants to go first?
So the start of the school year has been going well for the most part. I think there's a lot of general excitement about new classes. Most of the new rules have been pretty smoothly implemented, though I think we'll talk about some thoughts, address them in a second among the student body. Sorry. We're just going to say the phone policy has been implemented pretty well. The students have been more attentive in class. And sports have also games started today. And I know soccer and field hockey won their away games today. So mostly we just had some dress code thoughts from the general student population that we thought it was important to address here from the Board of Education because just to inform future steps. So we want to make sure that we recognize the thoughts and needs of the students while adhering to and informing our school's regulations. But we also think it's pertinent to acknowledge that the dress code policy is a new one, but has been one that the brunt of which has been taken out on the female student population. So though I personally have not been able to obtain statistics of dress coded students, I have not heard of any male students that have gotten dress coded, nor has any female student I've talked to. So in future steps, we'd like to ensure the full comfortability of female students in the school setting and minimize the self-consciousness about their bodies in front of various teachers out of fear of being publicly dress coded. And as we see it, the goal of the dress code, and as the student body sees it, is to increase the focus on learning. And intense dress code policies generally inhibit this. So focusing heavily on intricate details of clothing decisions, such as ones that may show a bit of hip or the side of the stomach, is not inherently productive in a school environment. And rather, female students have felt that it simply makes them more self-conscious of their bodies in front of teachers around the school and in classes.
I have a few things to add. There's a rule that apparently is sent in a document to all the staff and teachers, because I talked to the dress code committee today, and they said that it states that everyone has to use respectful and de-escalating language, and also you need to be pulled aside privately. And I have not seen this done at all. I've heard of some students getting pulled aside privately, and today I was talked to, and that's not why I'm bringing it up, but today I was talked to in the lunch line, and I was next to a few of my friends, and they had all heard very loudly the conversation, and I had people coming up to me from 5 people behind the line talking to me about what was said. So it was not a private conversation at all, and it was quite embarrassing. So that I just think definitely needs to, if it's stated in the guidelines, it should definitely be implemented. And then the other thing is that, adding on to that, a lot of people I know have been getting dress coded just sitting down next to me. There's been no private conversation there. And then there's a lot of concerns expressed about what specifically is being dress coded. And again, I talked to the dress code committee, and they said there's a policy that if the sides of your shirt are touching your pants and it's a very, very small slit of your stomach showing, that's technically not supposed to be dress coded, especially because that typically is what happens when you sit up and your shirt is all scrunched, and so it shows a very small sliver. But a lot of people, including myself, have been talked to because of this, even though it's not supposed to be talked to because of that. And so it's kind of confusing as to what parts of the policy are going to actually be considered if it seems like some parts are not being left out, and you're just being dress coded based on what the teacher is seeing and not following what is written. So there's some confusion there. And I've also heard that some people have been getting pulled out of class multiple times throughout different classes because there's not a system yet to log who has been dress coded. So I know a girl who told me that she got pulled out for 5 minutes out of 3 classes today, even though she tried to explain that she had already been talked to, they wouldn't let her explain. So she was getting time taken off 3 different classes, even though she tried to explain she was already dress coded. And the other thing is that I read that it's supposed to be, there's supposed to be professional development days for training will occur to make sure that the policy is being fairly and fairly and respectfully addressed everywhere in the school. And a lot of people just feel like it hasn't been fair, hasn't fairly addressed. So I feel like the training and professional development days is definitely very important.
Any questions? Okay, thank you. After that, we have, well, typically what I do is we'll do the superintendent's report. It's going to be your
Yeah, so,
if I don't know.
well, I included it, but I did add in some other pieces. And I don't usually do this with my report unless it's the end of the year and I'm going through kind of our accomplishments for the year. But you can see in the superintendent's report some of the meetings that we've had. I'm going to mess this up. Here we go. That we've had this year. So I'm not going to spend too much time on that. We did have, I think it's noteworthy that the state police and the Yukon safety folks were here, for a training, kind of a follow-up to last year where there were 3 full days of active shooter training at E.O. Smith. They followed up this year. It was a little bit
On a lesser scale, they used part of our building. We didn't have to shut the whole building down, but there were folks from all of the state police barracks and some local police as well who were coming in and doing simulations. Our security team, and Hans talked about this on our first day, our security team was invited to participate. So they were able to come in over those few days and work on simulations with the police department and really kind of know and understand what the process looks like. So I think it was a really positive experience for everyone. What else? Lots of meetings. They're included in your packet under correspondence is some information from Mariah Popolewski-Tilly, who is our food services director. Some really cool things that are happening in food service. There's a sample menu. She's working really hard. We discussed this last year. We're going to continue to work with her to create food options and for her to collaborate with a student advisory group to really make sure that our food services are meeting the needs of our students. We would like to be a little competitive with what's happening across the street. Not everybody can afford to go across the street, and for the purpose of equity, making sure that we are able to provide appealing and nutritious meals for our kids right here on campus. I don't want to do that. Okay. The other thing that I included in here, but we do have pictures, is the use of wooden utensils in our cafeteria. Really excited about that. It's our kind of first step into composting and just trying to get closer and closer to a place where we're a little bit more environmentally friendly. So it's a little bit of a shift for kids. Another one, guys, where the utensils have a collection bin, and those utensils will be composted along with some other items in the school from food services and from our culinary department. So a lot of work happened this summer on the backs of our maintenance crew. They did an absolutely amazing job. It's always amazing to me with such a small crew of folks, how much they get done. So there's the basic work that has to be done that could take up the whole summer in and of itself, going into every single classroom, removing all of the furniture, stripping, waxing, buffing the floors. That is a minor miracle that it's done on time and that the building looks so amazing. In addition to that, they put new carpet into the coach's office, which was a place I had never gone to, but we'll see pictures. Created a new space for our new school psychologist that took us a couple years to get in place, but the place where that's going to be comfortable for her and for her students was created out of a existing, what do you call it, an office? An existing space was turned into a very comfortable office space. The stage risers were repaired, sanded, clear coated, and they added a new subfloor, and I'm very excited to show you those pictures. Turf field, wiring for vape detectors, working with the state engineers. So you can read through all of that. Tennis courts were repaired for cracks, new feminine hygiene products in the women's restrooms, and the all gender rooms in one men's room as is obligated by state statute. And the solar panels are working. Very exciting. So just taking a look real quick. They completely painted the inside of the cafeteria. So when you go in there right now, it's kind of a blank canvas. Got rid of some of the lighting. That was a little 80s action going on. So you can see that it is, it's all painted white, and this was prior to the acoustical panels being put in. This is after the acoustic panels were put in. So when you go into the cafeteria, and if you've ever tried to hold a meeting in the cafeteria, which I tried the first or second year because we can socially distance a little bit, the acoustics are terrible. And for folks who are doing CAF duty and for the kids who have to sit in the cafeteria during those times, it's really very loud. So we're hoping that that's going to bring down some of the noise that's in the CAF. They've been on the plan for a while. Cafeteria additions, you can see we have our wooden utensils and our composting bins and all that stuff. We also, Mariah's brought in kind of the self-serve milk piece. The beauty of that part, I had envy when I went down to the new Mansfield Elementary School and saw that they had that opportunity. But what Mariah was able to do was to access local dairy. And so, you know, not only will, you know, eventually down the road, I think we're going to be a little bit more eco-friendly when we hopefully get to use cups that we can clean. We don't have the capacity to do that right now, but it's a plan for down the road, but also just to be able to utilize local folks and local dairy. I think it is a step in the right direction. We'll see how it goes. You guys can report on that next time. Let us know what it's like. Turf field has been the ongoing battle. You can see there's a picture of the turf field. This one, the picture doesn't really do it justice. When you go out and you take a look at it, it's really pretty. It's lovely. The panther at the center of the field is impressive. So kudos to the building committee and to Dennis, his crew, Dan, all the work that they put into researching. Hallway breakout space. So Dr. DiLoretto pitched an idea to Dennis about removing some of our banks of lockers that are not utilized and creating sort of these breakout spaces for kids. So this is kind of the very beginning of what it's going to look like. So there's ledges. You know, the goal is when you walk through the halls, and I found this when I was teaching upstairs. I'm freezing, sorry. It's really cool in here. When I was teaching upstairs, you would see kids working outside of their classrooms, collaborating, sometimes sitting on the floor, like really important conversations happening. So to create some, and again, this goes back to Mansfield Elementary where I had a little facility envy. They have breakout spaces in their hallways, just about everywhere, in every kind of pod that they have at the school. And, you know, really encouraging kids to take advantage of the space they have for learning collaboration. So this is our first step, and it was an exciting move in the right direction. So this is happening in four spaces in the building. This is the coaches' room. So new floor, it's got all the furniture's been returned back to it, but I think it's a place that's far more conducive for our coaches to do their planning. I'd love to explain more about what this is. It was a big deal. So the water shut down for the new water meter, and Dennis shared that it took 6 years to get this worked into the school schedule. So it was a pretty heavy lift to get this taken care of. So it's not as pretty as the turf field, but it's really important to the work. And then I think this is my favorite. The stage was redone in-house by our own maintenance crew. And so they went in and they, you know, sanded everything down. They replaced chunks of the stairs. And my favorite is they very carefully inlaid this portion. Oops. This portion, which is exactly at center stage. And then the back part, which we do not have a great picture of. This was in progress. This is what it looked like afterwards. Behind the curtain, where the flooring is black, they replaced all the subfloor and they painted it with a non-stick surface. So it really was, it took a lot of time and effort. They did an absolutely amazing job, and it looks amazing.
So, given that scenario, does anybody want to make a motion to approve the after graduation date, especially since that's the day that Jorgensen is available? Seems like a good day.
I would like to make that motion.
Motion by Sarah. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Second by Nick. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? I forgot to ask if anybody wanted to discuss it further, but it's already done. Did you want to discuss it?
No, but you sure did.
Okay, then we do have a need to go into executive session tonight. Before I do that, because when we go into executive session, the public has to leave, the meeting room. There may be, and a lot of times people don't wait around to come back, and there may be another opportunity for public to speak. Does anybody in the audience want to address the board one more time before we go into executive session? Okay, then yes.
Right. I just think it's important that the issues raised around the dress code are actually very serious because they're about Title IX, right? And these are because it's about.
Do you want to come up there and address the board?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Not dressed very formally. But I just wanted to know that the dress code issues are really also Title IX issues, right? And this was something that I spoke to the board about last year, another kind of Title IX issues, another kind of Title IX incident. But I do feel strongly that the board should take up in a really serious way the concerns that Mary and Sophie have raised. They're very serious ones. And the dress code has been in conversation, I think, for about 2 years with a lot of student involvement and investment. But it's really about women's bodies too. And so I think everybody's well-intentioned, but it seems to have gone really awry. And I've heard it from a lot of parents around town, and I think that it just needs to be addressed quite seriously. So I was hoping that there was a moment here for the board to kind of discuss some of the things that the students have raised. Thank you.
We're not going to discuss it tonight. Be careful.
Not discuss it maybe, but kind of.
No, this would be an issue to go to policy if they choose to take it up again, because policy was the committee that recommended the dress code and put in a lot of time and effort to come up with that dress code.
Right.
The concerns are legitimate, but it would be first up to policy to take on that discussion again before it will come to the board.
Okay. Thank you. And those meetings are public.
Yeah, and those meetings are public as well.
I don't think you heard that.
You may not have heard it when you're going back to see. Those meetings are public as well, the policy committee meetings. So that certainly these same concerns can be addressed at a policy committee meeting. Anything else? Nick?
If I may, I just want to say though that we do appreciate you all bringing up the concerns. I think it's really important. And I think, especially at the policy committee, that warrants a deeper discussion that we would be able to have. So, I mean, anyone's invited to policy. And I think if you would be willing to bring the same concerns up there, we can sort of have a more in-depth conversation. But definitely appreciate you both bringing it up here because it's really important. So thank you.
I had one thing I would like to ask you. If you could be very specific when you come, because I hear you tonight, our students, and I don't think it is the intent of people to embarrass you. And like for somebody, I mean, just if you bend over, if you show your back, I don't think anybody foresaw that being jumped upon, so to speak. So be very specific so we can address it. Thank you.
Anything else? Yes, of course.
Actually, you brought up a good point about how we would know when students would have already been dress coded. And that is actually something we touched upon last time. And part of it too is we knew that coming in that there's going to be a learning curve on how to implement the policy. You know, and hearing what you've said, you know, maybe we can develop some kind of a system where if a student needs to go to the office and, you know, they have, you know, the office tells them, okay, you violate dress code, get a card or something that's stamped, then you can show it throughout the day. You know, the intention is not to lose any learning time, but this is part of when a new policy is implemented, we are open to seeing how it can be better implemented and followed too by the students. And again, you know, like what Sarah had said, I think that when we were saying that, you know, the top reach the top and the bottom meet, we're not asking for it to be tucked in. We're not saying there needs to be a belt, you know, and when we did come up with this policy, we didn't want it to be measuring, you know, that, oh, it's 1 inch or 2 inches or whatever that is. It should just be visually that it's solid cover. So just so you have an understanding about some of the conversations that we had around that.
Yeah, I didn't mean to say anything disrespectful.
Oh, no, not at all.
Yeah.
No, and
I
I'm
just wanted to,
glad,
like,
no,
bring
I'm
up, like,
so
yeah.
glad that you said something.
Right.
But I'm just saying, just that's where our conversations were, in policy. But we do know that we need to come up with something, so that kids aren't interrupted throughout the day. So.
I'm sorry, Tim, go ahead.
Good, Tim.
No, I wanted to reiterate, I sit up here when you all are speaking, smiling, and proud. There's nothing that you said that was disrespectful at all.
Yeah.
To voice your opinions and your experiences, and that's why you're here, is representing, yourselves, but also the student body. And I think that that's something that you've done, a really nice job with. And I know, this policy was, very much created by students. Lots of focus groups with kids, lots of the students who are on that policy committee put in years of work, I think with support from their peers and from Dr. DiLibretto. There was input from, certainly the board and from teachers, and to Mrs. Christensen's point, definitely a learning curve. So when we know, before we've even had one full week of school, what some of the concerns are that we need to be attentive to, you're absolutely 100% doing why you're here, doing the job you're supposed to be doing. So number one, be proud of that. Number two, I'm proud of you for that. And unfortunately, whenever policies happen, it's usually in response to a problem. So we all need to work together to make sure that we're resolving the problem without marginalizing an already marginalized group. So thank you for bringing that stuff up.
Tim.
Pretty much what I was going to say. Thank you. Probably better than I would have said it. No, but thanks. We don't want to just get friendly updates on what's going on, right? So, thanks for bringing sort of, and so I'm glad that there's a sort of a tone anyway, that we can kind of hear all pieces of the experience. So, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Anything else? All right, Nick?
I would just say, please come to policy committee. And it's very important that you keep bringing this up, and we really, really appreciate it, and it forms the decisions we make. So thank you for bringing it up tonight, and I hope you continue to bring it up. So,
Anything else?
I'm done, promise.
I wouldn't recognize you again anyway.
Oh my God.
Just kidding.
That's not very nice.
I know. If there's nothing else, then I would entertain a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
So moved by Janice.
I'll second.
Second by Dan. Okay, any discussion on that? All in favor? Okay, and we're going into executive session. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for the
Thank you
discussion.
for coming, everyone.
Thank you.